I mean, for me, I think it's significant because it means we've had some healing work for 50 years. I mean, anytime that you're out of balance for that long, centuries, where we've only had one gender in these roles, that's bad for all of us. If it were reversed and only women were ordained and we missed out on all those years of male priests, we would be pretty out of balance. So I think it's just great for all of us that we're kind of balanced again. And for 50 years, we've been doing that healing work. And I think it's starting to feel more whole. It was actually confusing for me because my parents were Episcopalian. In our home church, there was a husband-wife team who co-led. So I never saw any imbalance and women were always very equal. But then I went to college, joined RUF, Reformed University Fellowship, I think, which is a very conservative Presbyterian group. And while I was there, I felt the call to the priesthood, and the leader found that out and suggested that we do a one-on-one Bible study where he spent a year explaining to me biblically why it was wrong for me to lead in the church. So, just an entire year of having somebody in authority be like, you should not do this. It was just really confusing. And I came across that so much more since that I was like, man, I kind of wish I had known that. When I was growing up in Western North Carolina, it was not as much of an issue. And it has been a big issue. I won't say my whole career, but a lot more than I ever thought it would be. I mean, there's like a plethora of examples I could give. I remember at my very first church at St. John's in Tampa, a member of the choir wrote me a really nasty letter about how women should not be priests, and I have destroyed the church by coming there. And I showed it to the rector. He had asked the man to apologize and things like that. But he said to me, you have to understand it's not been very long that women have been priests, and it's very hard for people. And I said, but you have to understand, never in my life have women not been priests. So it is very hard for me to understand. I think for me, I'm called to this place, so it feels good that I'm able to do it. Whereas there are women in my family who I know were called and were not allowed to do it. Like going back generations, there's all kinds of stories about women in my family. My grandmother, in fact, she was not allowed to serve as an acolyte, and she just pestered the priest over and over just to be able to do that. And she insisted on carrying the cross until he finally gave in. And there's a story about how she came in the church doors and several families got up and left and never came back. And that was just acolyte, So for me to be, the one that actually got to be ordained, it means a lot.
What's your message to young women that may be discerning call to ordained ministry in our church or any faith?
I mean, I think my message is just you already know and trust it. When I went through the process in South Carolina, because that's where I went to college, the discerning committee kept me for many months longer than they should have. And at the end, they said, we can't deny that you're called, but we just don't believe you're going to be very successful. So, there was a lot of hurtful comments and not a lot of support in the beginning, but I just always knew that this is where I was called to be, and I trusted that God would put me in the right place, and God has been faithful.